All right. Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen of the internet. This is try number 3 at doing this stream, somewhat unsuccessfully. So the last couple times we've tried to do this, we've been mired by loads of technical problems, first from StreamYard themselves, and then from YouTube, being the wonderful patrons of harboring my degenerate content, who have been throttling the hell out of me recently. I'm not gonna make this whole thing a pity stream on that front, but I'll just say that after doing a little bit more research, the way in which YouTube does deliver notifications is actually retarded. I honestly think that the 5-year-old in the kindergarten class who spends the entire day eating crayons and paste after melting them on the register and just shoveling them into his mouth is more intelligent than whoever the fuck programmed YouTube's notification system. That being said, I'm going to try and keep things going the way that I have been going, just simply because I after doing a little bit more research into the platform Odyssey, I don't really jive with what they're doing. It's a crypto bro front, honestly, through and through. I do want to point out here, though, that Maximus and Menno does make a point, and this is something that I have stated before. It might be interesting for you to know. I have to manually press notify me for the stream. Do you see the problem? How are you supposed to know that there is going to be a stream unless you're a part of the Messiah's Mythology Discord? Link is down in the description below. To be able to get to that page to tell YouTube to be notified. That just doesn't make any fucking sense to me. So let's see. Regardless, that's water under the bridge. We're just gonna try to ignore that for as of right now. Just know that I am kind of going behind the scenes a little bit, and I am going to be working on a small little side project to help get the notifications out to you guys a little bit faster. So, with that all being said, this is episode 6 of Bible Book by Book, entitled Something My Dad Would Do, in reference to probably the most famous story from these sections of the Bible that we're going to be going over today. Oh, excuse me. So today we're going to be diving in at the start of Genesis 21, and we're going to go all the way up until Genesis 25. A little bit further than I probably would like to go, but at the same time, you know, it is a little bit tantalizing to say, ooh, we're going to be halfway done with Genesis by the end of this this stream. Snikel, thank you for saying bless you. I guess while we're waiting for people to get in here, no, I'm not going to bother explaining the history of saying bless you to people when they sneeze. Most everybody, I think, already knows that whole little tidbit. You know, if not, you didn't ask enough questions when you were 3 years old. me, I was just like,
why do we say bless you? Does God hate them?
The answer is yes, but that has nothing to do with the fact that they just sneezed. Okay. So let me go ahead here. We're going to go and get the banner up. And we're going to start. Oh, wait. No, I'm getting ahead of myself. I actually do have another little section for you guys before we actually start today's stream. And this is something that's been requested by a great deal of you guys. especially those who are a little more curious about like the sources that I use to create my videos. So for today and moving forward, I am going to start a new segment where I start to share some of the books, at least like the Amazon pages, um, for the books that I use for my research. Uh, give you guys like a basic rundown on my thoughts on it and as to whether or not I really recommend it. So this week we're going to be diving into Did God Have a Wife? Archaeology and Folk Religion in Ancient Israel by William G. Dever. Excuse me, not Denver, Dever. Uh, Very interestingly, the Kindle version costs more than the hardcover and the paperback. Explain that one to me. But regardless, so this has to deal primarily with the idea of Asherah and her worship in ancient Israel. And, um, I think the book doesn't, spoiler alert, by the way, the book doesn't really focus too much on that aspect. And it's more so about like the idea of polytheism in ancient Israel. Um, in regards to that, there are a lot of other books that I have read. A History of God by Karen Armstrong is definitely better. And I actually have it right over here. The Early History of God by Mark S. Smith. I think both of these books do a much better job at presenting the information regarding, like the reformations of King Ahaz and Jezebel, how his son, kind of tried to get the monarchy back on track to become a theocracy, things of that nature. The major problem that I have with this book in particular is that the wording in it is incredibly pretentious sounding. It really does just come across like 95% of like college textbooks where the author is trying to use very advanced vernacular, very flowery language, as I might call it, to make themselves sound smarter when realistically, if you want to have your message go out to as many people as possible, you're going to want to try and use more simple language that everybody is capable of understanding, without having to crack open a thesaurus every 5 words. So yeah, this one's not very good. I will say though that one of the positives of it is that it is illustrated. There are quite a few topological maps, illustrated figures of like pottery and ancient temples and things of that nature. Um, so, I mean, if you are kind of a layman on this, I would recommend this book. Um, and if you don't mind, somebody dunking on you like, oh, I'm so, r/I am very smart. But in the vein of that, I would definitely recommend more so the Mark S. Smith Early History of God. But that's neither here nor there. Also, I think that book is really hard to get a hold of, so you might not want to try and spring for that. In my language, it is. Oh my god. Okay, so I am the wrong kind of Slav to try and fucking pronounce this. Czechoslovakian and slightly Polish. Let me try. Let me make a fool of myself. Nazdrav Lige. Nazdrav Lige. I apologize for that, but apparently it is just health, which honestly makes more sense. You know, it's not an over exaggeration that like people in the Middle Ages thought you were literally going to die. Okay, so let's go ahead here, and if I can get my program to share the screen, we want you. So we're going to start off today on Genesis 21. Oh, let me get that banner up. Yes, it's called Tits Full of Sand. You'll see why in just a moment. So let's begin. 21, verse 1. And Jehovah visited Sarah as he had said, and Jehovah did unto Sarah as he had spoken. As Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time of which God had spoken to him. Just kind of a little bit of a recap. In the previous chapter, I believe that was Genesis 20. No. I'm sorry. That was Genesis 18. He had said, "Hey, you're getting another son." The subtext to that is, "Get ready to throw out your old son," but he never explicitly said that. Though you'll see God does kind of shaft Ishmael a little bit here. And Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bare to him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born unto him. Just kind of to keep a idea of where we're at in the timeline. This is not an exact perfect science. Things kind of did get tripped up a little bit because it didn't say how old Noah was when he conceived Japheth. But just going off of my estimates, we're at about 3035 AC after creation. So quite divorced from where we are with Adam and Eve. We're also quite a ways off from King David and Solomon, and even further off from Jesus. But when we do have a full comprehensive timeline, I'll try to keep you guys up to date on that. And let's scroll down here a little bit. Look, it doesn't run away from me. I love this. 21:6. And Sarah said, God hath made me to laugh. Everyone that heareth will laugh with me. So, believe it or not, there is actually some debate as to whether Sarah actually has a moment of self-reflection here and meant to say, laugh at me, rather than laugh with me. The translations are a little bit contentious. It's not totally clear in the original Hebrew, as the preposition li just makes a reference to oneself in the first person singular. So it can be interpreted in two different ways, really. However, I think you all know which camp I situate myself into with regards to Sarah, and my point is only about to be reinforced with the fact that she is an oversensitive, shallow individual, and Genesis 23 just cannot come soon enough. And she said, who would have said unto Abraham that Sarah should give children suck? For I have borne him a son in his old age. And the child grew, and he was weaned. And Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, whom she had borne unto Abraham, mocking. All right. So keep in mind here that Ishmael is only about 13 years old at this point. And there's also the fact that his parents are literally holding a party to celebrate the fact that Isaac isn't sucking on Sarah's ancient saggy ass tits, which are probably more full of sand than milk by this point. This is hilarious to me, a 25-year-old. So you can only imagine what a 13-year-old kid with all the emotional maturity of a Call of Duty lobby would have to say in regards to this absurdity on the situation. I personally do not blame him whatsoever. 2110. Wherefore she said unto Abraham, cast out this handmaid and her son, for the son of this handmaid shall not be heir with my son, even with Isaac. That's what being heir with your son means. You only have one, you decrepit old crone. Frankly, though, I'm surprised they actually made it this far. Remember, Sarah had already tried to cast Hagar out way back in like Genesis 16. So when God came to her and prophesied her having her own son, I kind of just expected her jealousy to overtake her and have that whole situation be the catalyst for kicking them out of their tent city. But good on you guys. You made it this far, but you go no further. I got an obnoxious page break here. And the thing was very grievous in Abraham's sight on account of his son. And God said unto Abraham, let it not be grievous in thy sight, because of the lad, and because of thy handmaid. In all that Sarah saith unto thee, hearken unto her voice, for in Isaac shall thy seed be called. And also of the son of the handmaid I will make a nation, because he is thy seed. And Abraham rose up early in the morning and took bread and a bottle of water and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder, and gave her the child and sent her away. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. Excuse me. So, despite Abraham finding the whole situation, quote unquote, grievous, and God promising him that they'll be just fine, he doesn't really seem to give much of a shit about their survival, as he's literally just throwing them out into the middle of the wilderness with a loaf of bread and a bottle of water and absolutely no sense of direction. He doesn't tell them where to go, where to settle down to establish their nation, nothing of the sort. And the thing is, Zoar still exists here, people. He could have directed Hagar there, so at the very least, she and Ishmael could slum there for a spell. But no, he seems content to leaving them to their own devices, and as we're about to see, they nearly die because of this. "21:15. And the water in the bottle was spent, and she cast the child under one of the shrubs. And she went and sat down over against him a good way off, as it were a bow shot." Very strange wording, but okay. "For she said, let me not look upon the death of the child. And she sat over against him, and lifted up her voice, and wept. And God heard the voice of the lad, and the angel of God called to Hagar out of heaven, and said unto her, What aileth thee, Hagar? Fear not, for God hath heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise, lift up the lad, and hold him in thy hand, for I will make him a great nation. And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the bottle with water, and gave the lad drink. And God was with the lad, and he grew, and he dwelt in the wilderness, and became, as he grew up, an archer. And he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took him a wife out of the land of Egypt." So, I mean, at the very least, someone cared enough to try and spare their lives. Don't get too comfortable with the idea of God saving the lives of his people. Once we get to Exodus, there's going to be a massive shift in his characterization where he gets a lot more wrathful and a lot more petty. "And it came to pass at that time that Abimelech and Phicol, the captain of his host, spake unto Abraham, saying, God is with thee in all that thou doest. Now therefore swear unto me here by God that thou wilt not deal falsely with me, nor with my son, nor with my son's son, but according to the kindness that I have done unto thee, thou shalt do unto me and to the land wherein thou hast sojourned. So Abimelech, that guy from Genesis 20, Abraham tried to whore his wife off to, comes back here and essentially says, hey, we've been treating you real well here, all things considered, but I want you to swear to God, the one that we both believe in at this point, because Jehovah is still pretty transparently El, that you or your people won't pull that shit ever again. Spoiler alert, they pull the same shit again. Apparently, this isn't so much a request as it is a demand, though, seeing as he brought the commander of his army along to oversee the ratification of this deal. So it's more like, yeah, we'll shake on it. Don't mind my friend there who has a gun pointed at your head while we force you to do it. By the way, no flag against Abimelech here. He's totally justified in doing what he's doing here. So 21:24. And Abraham said, I will swear. And Abraham reproved Abimelech because of the well of water which Abimelech's servants had violently taken away. And Abimelech said, I know not who hath done this thing, neither didst thou tell me, neither yet heard I of it, but today. So after Abimelech makes a very reasonable request not to be fucked over again, Abraham has the audacity to bring up a well of water that his men had supposedly seized for themselves. Now, thankfully, Abimelech calls him out on this bullshit and says that it's rather convenient that Abraham is just now mentioning this to him after he came and sought him out personally. Apparently, Abraham doesn't want to press his luck any further here, as the issue is immediately dropped. And Abraham, as a show of quote-unquote good faith, gives Abimelech some of his livestock, which, keep in mind, at least some of it he stole from him in the first place. Absolutely brilliant. Where are we at now? 21:27. And Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them unto Abimelech, and they two made a covenant. And Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. And Abimelech said unto Abraham, what mean these 7 ewe lambs which thou hast set by themselves? And he said, these 7 ewe lambs shalt thou take of my hand, that it may be a witness unto me that I have digged this well. Abimelech is a much more patient man than I am, seeing as this sister fucker right here is giving him back some of his own livestock that he conned him out of in the first place, then gave him back 7 more lambs with the added condition, just in case anybody asks, though, that well did belong to me. My God, I cannot wait till Genesis 25. Wherefore he called that place Beersheba, because they swear, both of them. Yeah. So they made a covenant at Beersheba. And Abimelech rose up, and Phicol the captain of his host, and they returned to the land of the Philistines. And Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, I think that's how you pronounce it, and called there on the name of Jehovah, the everlasting God. And Abraham sojourned in the land of the Philistines many days. and that was Genesis chapter 21. It's another one of those chapters which I think probably should have been split into two, just because like the narrative goes in a completely different direction at the later half of the passage. Essentially, the first part is, I don't want this kid anymore, get him out of here. And then afterwards, it's Abraham being a complete and total scumbag. So, as we should be very familiar with by this point. So that is going to be the end of that passage. And if anybody has any questions or anything about any of the previous chapters that we go over, feel free to just leave them in the comments. I did kind of update the description a little bit to reflect that it is kind of stupid for me to say, no, just don't ask questions until the very end of the presentation. That leads to a massive span in time between, when we actually finish a chapter and when the questions may actually be asked. So I very well could forget what we just read. So we're going to move on to the most famous chapter in this entire little section of Genesis that we're going to be covering today. Filicide is homicide with extra drama. And indeed it is. And oh boy, if you don't think that Abraham is a sleazy son of a bitch yet, just wait until we get done with this one. Oh, wait, we do have a comment. That man's patience is enviable. Yes. Abimelech actually does make a couple more appearances in the next couple chapters of the Bible, which it kind of makes me feel bad for calling Genesis 20 filler, just because he is kind of a bit of a reoccurring character. And I would honestly say he's probably the most likable character of all of Genesis by this point. Just simply because, well, Ishmael and Isaac really don't have a personality yet. Abraham and Sarah are some of the worst people ever. God is actually better here than he is in the other books of the Pentateuch. Mainly because I think that they're really not trying to hide the fact that he is transparently still El by this point. That kind of gets thrown out the window by the time we get to Exodus, especially the later parts of Exodus. But yeah. Salem LeBlanc, this is reminding me a lot of the Quran. Things change on a dime, and changes of heart are made in strange coincidences of convenience for its main character, in this case, Abraham. Yeah, we're going to get a little bit more into the differences between the Pentateuch and the Quran once we get to Genesis 25. Especially with regards to Abraham's attitude towards Ishmael. Abraham is still an indecisive asshole, but Ishmael kind of, sort of usurps Isaac as more so like the main son. Yeah. So that's basically it. Do a video about Zalmorianism and Baltic mythology and Wicca. You were wrong with the Finnish national epic. I don't see how I was, because I was literally reading the fucking book as I was doing that. But if you want to expand on that, I am more than open to hearing criticism. With regards to Baltic mythology specifically, I do actually have plans to eventually, when I get the time, to sit down and try and read the English translation of the Calvi Poeg, just simply because, like, the only audio recording of it that I can find online is in Estonian, which is, yeah, like there's going to be like a total of 3 people on all of YouTube that could probably understand that. So I'm kind of trying to like expand the cultural influence of that thing, and just kind of read it out raw from there. Um, the thing about Wicca that I really don't like is that it is kind of a perversion of earlier mythologies, more specifically Irish neo-paganism. It, I mean, I guess I could do a video on it, but I would just say wait until September. September, we're actually going to be doing a double feature. It's going to be the Baphomet character study, as well as a history of the fall of the Knights Templar, because those two are, tied pretty closely together. So when we do eventually get to that, I don't know. I don't have an exact date of when that will be coming out. I will tell you guys that the next major video on this channel, mark your calendars, is going to be going up Friday the 18th, probably about 2 o'clock or so. That is going to be our character study on Samael, which, yes, throughout August, September, and into October, we're going to do like a triple character study again, kind of like what we did with the ancient Celtic deities earlier on. It's going to start with Samael, go into Baphomet, and then we finish off with Lilith. And then from there, I don't even know if there is going to be a video in November. Maybe. But I myself am going to be busying myself a lot leading up to Christmas, because we're actually going to do a proper Christmas special this year for once. So in any case, yeah, I have been stalling long enough. Let's move right along to Genesis 22. Apologies if I do not see any of your comments. I'm going to be a little bit preoccupied reading by this point. So, but I will get back to you when we're done. So Genesis 22. And it came to pass after these things that God did prove Abraham and said unto him, Abraham, and he said, Here am I. Thank you. Thank you for announcing yourself, God. And he said, Take now thy son, thine only son, whom thou lovest, even Isaac. I don't know why he says even Isaac, but okay. And get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon me, one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. So, remember back to the last chapter, before Abraham's petty offering to get back into Abimelech's good graces? God never did circle back around to tell him that Ishmael and Hagar were okay. And judging by how he chooses to word this request, thine only son, he is implying that they actually did die out in the middle of the desert, as was probably what Abraham/Sarai's plan was anyway. Excuse me, Sarah by this point. Spoiler alert, Ishmael doesn't appear again in the Bible until Genesis 25, after Abraham is already dead. So unless God told him at some point and we just never heard about it, he probably died assuming that his eldest son was already dead and gone. That's a little bit fucked up, but at the same time, Abraham probably cares about as much for Ishmael as my own father cares for me. So, is it really all that tragic? And Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his ass, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son. And he clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went unto the place for which God had told him. So, in a surprise to literally no one, except for people who only hear this tale retold to them via some sort of dramatic reenactment, Abraham does not question this one bit. Despite the fact that God had previously told him that Isaac was supposedly to be his heir, apparently now his ass is grass. Also, don't read too much into the two other guys going with them. They don't really factor into this story whatsoever. On the third day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said unto his young men, Abide ye here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder, and we will worship and come again to you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it upon Isaac his son, and he took in his hand the fire and the knife. And they went both of them together. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here am I, my son. And he said, Behold, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? It's not specified how old Isaac is at this point in this story, but most interpretations still have him as being a young kid, which, good on him for being observant. Not that it's going to save him, but at the very least, he's a good boy. He's a very analytical child. And Abraham said, God will provide himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son. So they went both of them together. And they came to the place which God had told him of. And Abraham built the altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him upon the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of Jehovah called unto him out of heaven, and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him, for now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. We'll get into it, don't worry. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in the thicket by its horns. And Abraham went and took the ram, and offered him up for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. And Abraham called the name of the place Jehovah-Jireh, as it is said unto this day, In the mount of Jehovah it shall be provided. The name literally just means the Lord will provide. Not a great name for a place to put on a trip in itinerary, but that is nonetheless what it's called. Trust me, we will eventually. I have plenty to say about this. Just wait. I'm gonna get to the end of this the end of this section of the chapter first. And the angel of Jehovah called unto Abraham a second time out of heaven, and said, By myself I have sworn, saith Jehovah, because thou hast done this thing, and hast not withheld thy son, thy only son, again, really want to re-emphasize that point, that in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of the heavens, and as the sand which is upon the seashore. And thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies. And in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because thou hast obeyed my voice. Excuse me. Well, congratulations, Abraham, for traumatizing your young son and nearly killing him in a sacrificial offering. You get exactly what he had originally been promised. So, what the actual fuck was the point of this exercise? If you're going to say to test Abraham's faith, you've got an awful lot of context to ignore here. First of all, this guy has literally done everything that Jehovah had asked of him, to a fault, in fact. He sacrificed the bisected animals for that weird covenant ritual. He received the second son he promised you, despite the fact that both him and Sarah should be infertile. He saved your first son's life, twice, though you don't know about the second time yet, you literally appeared before him in the flesh while you were still doing the epiphany thing. Strange then that there's no mention of himself coming down to stop the knife, meaning if you really want to stretch the biblical canon, he actually did want him to sacrifice his son, but Samael stepped in at the last second and stopped something stupid from happening. And Abraham even threw out Hagar and Ishmael in the last chapter according to Sarah's will because he told you to. I think his faith is pretty well proven by this point. And that's not even mentioning the fact that he, concerningly, didn't even argue with you when he told you to kill his own son. He was just basically like, oh, all right. Fuck you. Trying to see this for what it is, this religious psychopath. He would literally do anything that you tell him to do. And that's like trying to see what would happen if you were to openly advocate for gay rights in the middle of Tehran's central square. The outcome is inevitable. All you're really doing is poking the bear. But this brings into discussion whether or not Judaism, at least in its infancy, practiced any sort of human sacrifice. In a word, no. In fact, beyond this tale, it's repeatedly frowned upon as a practice, though it is told that it is reintegrated into Jewish practice, but only by heretical outsiders and wicked kings who would dare to practice idolatry of other gods in their temples. I actually did see a video fairly recently, and I think I will maybe do like another response commentary sort of video like I did before with Zoroastrianism. It was essentially some edgelord atheist YouTuber arguing against like some up his own ass evangelical pastor. And he essentially argues that because of a very specific passage, I don't remember what book it's from. I'll have to look it up afterwards. Because of a very specific passage, he points to that as evidence that the ancient Jews actually did practice human sacrifice, which no. If you read it in context, which a lot of people don't, they love to cherry pick Bible quotes, as we've seen in our Satan video. If you read it in context, God literally says, I had deceived them into believing in false idols, causing them to do such things as human sacrifice, temple prostitution, this, that, and the third. It was never so much a commandment that he had said that human sacrifice be a part of the religion. Even going back to Genesis 9 and the way that the burnt offerings that Noah gave him were very confusingly worded. Even still, you put a little bit more analysis into it. That's never been a part of the whole Jewish faith. Unless somebody wants to point to, some sort of extra canonical pseudepigraphical book wherein, that is explicitly spelled out, but I honestly don't think it exists. Otherwise, I probably would have heard of it by now. It probably would be like the headline of like every single fucking edgelord atheist YouTuber's entire channel, basically. Now, however, there is a precedence for this in the Phoenician and Canaanite world. Human sacrifice, I mean. There have been jars discovered with the remains of human bones smashed up and mixed in with smashed animal bones, suggesting that these people, often children, may have been sacrificed alongside this livestock to appease their gods. And if we accept that El and Jehovah are the same figure by this point in the Bible, asking someone to kill their son to worship him isn't exactly something he's never asked anyone to do before. Later on, Judaism also kind of revitalizes belief on animal sacrifices too, but this was almost certainly spurred on by Zoroastrianism influences, seeing as a sort of refusal to sacrifice animals to Ahura Mazda was the whole reason Zoroaster was selected as his prophet in the first place. I know that was kind of a bit of a long note, but thank you for listening. So Abraham returned unto his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba. And Abraham dwelt at Beersheba. And it came to pass after these things that it was told to Abraham, that's what it should say, saying, Behold, Milcah, she hath borne children unto thy brother Nahor. That should be thy brother Nahor. This is a messy translation. To save you all the awkwardness of, this chapter, P decides to step in again and write in that God essentially told Abraham, hey, you remember your brother Nahor? Well, now you have a faceless, unimportant niece and a couple of unimportant nieces and nephews, and the only one of note for later on is going to be Bethuel, but only because he is the father to Isaac's eventual wife, Rebecca. Spoiler alert, Rebecca is literally even worse than Sarah. But, of course, we'll be getting into that a bit later. So, the rest of Genesis 22 is just more worthless genealogy. I guess I'll speed run it really quick. Uz is firstborn, and Buz his brother, and Kemuel the father of Aram, and Chesed, and Hazo, and Pildash, and Jiplath, and Bethuel begat Rebekah. These 8 did Michal bear to Nahor, Abraham's brother, and his concubine, whose name is Rauma. She also bare Teba, and Gaham, and Tahash, and Makkah. Completely ignore all of those names because not a single one of them is relevant, as I said, except for Rebecca and kind of Bethuel. Kind of. So they were basically playing gay chicken, and the angel decided no child killing. That's one interpretation that you could have of it. Oh, by the way, I did not mention. Well, I guess I did actually. That Samael is the next video coming up. I just kind of name dropped Samael there without really elaborating on who he is. But yes, Samael is in some sources connected to the Genesis 22 story. Shinkaze, yay, I finally made it. What have I missed? 2 chapters so far, Genesis 21 and 22. To summarize, Ishmael got kicked out of the tent city. Abimelech came back and called Abraham an asshole because he is. And now in this most recent chapter, God essentially said, psych, right as he was about to kill Isaac. Literally at the very last seconds. So that was fun. Oh, maybe God was wanting to see how far the game of Simon Says would go. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, a lot of apologists like to try and kind of brush this entire story under the rug a little bit and say, well, we don't know how far Abraham really necessarily would go in terms of trying to appease God. You know, we don't know if he would literally kill one of his own children in order to do that, except the fact that in a roundabout way, he kind of does. When he kicks out Ishmael and Hagar, you know, and he only gives them like a single bottle of water and some bread, he should have had that squarely in his mind that he was probably sending them out to their doom. That's but he did that A, because his wife told him to, but B, because God had actually reaffirmed Sarah's decision in order to do that sort of thing. So yeah, he kind of sort of already did prove his faith by essentially condemning his son to death. And also, he never bothered to send anybody out there to make sure that they were okay, give them any sort of extra provisions, nothing like that. So yeah, you got a lot of context to ignore, honestly, if you want to try and excuse this entire passage. I'd be more than willing to hear out somebody's reasoning for this sort of thing, but it, it's going to be a hard sell. Excuse me. Salam, if Abraham is real, I'm curious what the surrounding communities viewed him as. Well, you're in luck, because Genesis 23 kind of gives us a little bit of a peek into that that very same sort of quandary. Both Genesis 23 and 24, which is coming up, characters say some things that are very interesting in context, and it's something that I'm definitely going to be taking note of for a later video that I want to do. But just note that if you're trying to argue against the idea of Jehovah being El, or much more broadly, Judaism being polytheistic, your argument is dead and buried by this point, my friend. I am sorry to tell you. So, I've been waiting for this one. I'm actually very excited for Genesis 23, which, if you can read the title, you could probably infer what's about to happen and know exactly why it is that oh boy, I love this. I love this. So, Genesis 23, verse 1. And the life of Sarah was 107 and 20 excuse me, 107 and 20 years, 127 years. And they were the years of the life of Sarah. And Sarah died in Kiriath Arba, the same as Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. Thank God. To anybody who's been following along by this point, you know that I absolutely despise Sarah. And Abraham, your time is coming too, my friend, my anti-friend. I fucking hate you. But as much as I would love to celebrate, we do eventually have to deal with Rebecca coming up very soon. Ew. And Abraham rose up from before his dead and spake unto the children of Heth, saying, scrolling back a little bit to the children of Heth, these guys are often translated as the Hittites of what is now modern day Turkey, or as you may know it, Anatolia, which is odd because this region is really far to the north of Canaan. And even further if we are to assume that these guys were fairly close to Egypt at this time. So why were they so far away? Well, because it's actually not that far from Abraham's tent city. These are the sons of Heth, one of Ham's children who populated this land and currently holds the rights to Hebron, the region they currently inhabit, which is actually a little ways south of Jerusalem and Bethlehem. As we're about to see, without a wife to pimp out to the Hittites, Abraham will be forced to buy some of this property in order to bury Sarah, which will be quite important for later on, as it will then factor into Isaac and later Jacob's inheritance. But more on that a little bit later. And he said, I am a stranger and a sojourner with you. Give me a possession of a burying place with you, that I may bury my dead out of my sight. And the children of Heth answered Abraham, saying unto him, Hear us, my lord. Thou art a prince of God among us. In the choice of that word, bury thy dead. None of us shall withhold from thee his land. I assume that's supposed to be a simile for land. But that thou mayest bury thy dead. Now, very interesting piece of knowledge for me to talk your collective ears off about, as the Hittite mythology is a little bit scattered. Basically, we know some of the more famous hymns and religious texts, as those were routinely copied by scholars as a homework assignment, which is where we get our knowledge on a lot of ancient religions, seeing as this shit was routinely written on clay tablets. And if the Ten Commandments taught us anything, it's that a small drop could mean disaster for preservation's sake. What little we do know is that the Hittites did have a creator god, Elkuni Rissa. It's very hard to pronounce. I'll have to look up a more proper pronunciation if I do decide to make a full video on this. Thought to be a derivative of the Ugaritic El. Just an FYI, the tablets recovered from Ugarites are basically our best and only surviving preservations of Canaanite mythology, though more than likely told through a very Ugaritic-centric scope. What further reinforces this is that the Hittite Elkunrisa, I'm going to get that right eventually, is actually married to Aserdus, thought to be the equivalent of Ashira. Now, hypothetically, if I were to be gathering evidence for an upcoming video discerning the identity of the Hebrew/Christian/Islamic God, you can be sure as shit that along with Abimelech stating that he believes in the same God, and the fact that these guys are literally calling Abraham a prince of God among us, probably lends a little more credence that El Shaddai is a lot more influential among the Jews than a lot of the faithful people would care to admit. Yes, by the way, Yahweh and Asherah are both eventually going to be getting character study videos. Emphasis on the word eventually. 23:7. And Abraham rose up and bowed himself to the people of the land, even to the children of Heth. That would be the people of the land. I don't know why you need to say even. And he communed with them, saying, If it be your mind that I should bury my dead out of my sight, hear me, and entreat me to Ephron, the son of Zoar, that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which he hath, which is in the end of his field. For the full price let him give it to me in the midst of you for a possession of a burying place. Now Ephron was sitting in the midst of the children of Heth. How convenient. And Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the audience of the children of Heth, even of all that went in at the gate of his city, saying, Nay, my lord, hear me. The field I give thee, and the cave that is therein, bleh, I give it thee. In the presence of the children of my people, I give it thee. Bury thy dead. And Abraham bowed himself down before the people of the land. And he spake unto Ephron in the audience of the people of the land, saying, But if thou wilt, I pray thee, hear me. I will give the price of the field. Take it of me, and I will bury my dead there. And Ephron answered Abraham, saying unto him, My lord, hearken unto me. A piece of land worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that betwixt me and thee? Bury therefore thy dead. So allow me to become a little bit of a nerd here. But first, let me say, it's very surprising given his current characterization that Abraham would insist that he pay for land despite it being offered to him. He seems to have absolutely no reservations about taking other people's shit anyway, but yeah, here we are. Now, like I said, I am a massive nerd. So I did a little bit of the math on this whole real estate deal going on down here. A silver shekel normally weighed about 11 grams. Assuming that it is pure silver, that means that Abraham paid about 4,400 grams of silver for the plot of land. According to the current market values for silver, which keep in mind are way higher than they are at this time, the estimated value of this plot of land, including the cave as well as all the assets of Machpelah, were procured for roughly $3,471.51 in today's money, even factoring in our modern currency conversion rates for silver, which I don't think I need to tell you is a really, really good deal for any sort of real estate, especially a plot of land big enough for a synagogue and a mosque to be built on top of. And yes, this has led to many violent philosophy-based attacks over the years, but we'll ignore that. Now, let's dive a little bit more into the name of Machpelah, which means Cave of the Double, meaning that there are actually two chambers inside. Housed within them are said to be the remains of Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Rebekah, Jacob, and Leah. Hence why the site is known today as the Tomb of the Patriarchs and is important to all of the Abrahamic faiths. Hence the philosophy-based bouts of violence which occurred on the land, but I do digress. I don't know about you guys, but I could very easily afford this plot of land myself. And as we'll see, it's not like barren wasteland. You know, it's going to be described as having trees and grasslands and stuff like that. And the mosque that they did build, the mosque and the synagogue that they did build on this plot of land is actually pretty sizable. So it is a really big chunk of land. And, you know, for less than 4K, fuck, man, I'd take that deal. It basically is like Abraham stole it from him. Again, though, I'm just being a nerd. And Abraham hearkened unto Ephron, and Abraham weighed to Ephron the silver which he had named in the audience of the children of Heth, 400 shekels of silver, current money with the merchants. So the field of Ephron, which was in Machpelah, which was before Mamre, the field, and the cave which was therein, and all the trees that were in the field, that they were all in the border thereof round about, were made sure. Blech. Unto Abraham for a possession in the presence of the children of Heth, before all that went into the gate of his city. And after this, Abraham buried Sarah his wife in the cave of the field of Machpelah, before Mamre, the same as Hebron, in the land of Canaan. Now, I tried to find out if there are any interesting burial practices in Judaism which may or may not have been observed here at this point. The only thing I was really able to find, since funeral practices vary from practice to practice, is that upon hearing the news of a loved one's death, their immediate family member is meant to tear at the clothes that they're wearing. In modern times, the fabric doesn't have to be clothes, let alone ones that the family members are wearing at the time, and this is usually done at the actual funeral, which is a shared custom around the Middle East at this point in time, as Inanna tells her Sukal Ninchubar to do something very similar if she does not return from the underworld, which you will be able to hear about if you can actually track down the video that YouTube failed to send out a notification to any of you for, Inanna in the Underworld. I posted that about a week or two ago on my channel. Go ahead, check it out. It's really well done. Editor really knocked it out of the park. And it's one of my favorite scripts because I not only get to be educational, but I also get to be very condescending and tell people why they're wrong, which is one of my favorite things to do. Spoiler alert, though, it's mainly going to be modern left-wing ideologues and their politics that are going to be upset by what I have to say. But, that's kind of par for the course. Believe it or not, I actually got another comment just this week about somebody else calling me a what the fuck is the ism, the buzzword for somebody who hates women? I honestly can't even be fucked to remember anymore. Yeah, that was basically like the whole thing. Like they were watching the Valkyries video, and a misogynist. Thank you. Yeah, they were watching the Valkyries video, and they're like, "Oh, I was really enjoying this until you started going into your pro misogynist rant." And I was just like, "Okay, so what?" Yeah, I am a blatant, raging woman hater. I absolutely hate women. I think that the 19th Amendment should be revoked. I think that women need to go back into the kitchen and get slapped around by their husbands. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that I actually do believe in that. Now what? Exactly. you know, all you really have to do is just roll with the punches with their ad hominems, and they have no argument beyond that point. Because who the fuck is gonna like actually sit down and defend the absolutely retarded theories of Kathleen Self that were presented in that video? Not too many people. At least not too many people with more than 2 brain cells to rub together. Oh yeah, no, I actually didn't even fucking notice this. Thank you for pointing that out, Shinkaze. Was it just Abraham that went to mourn her? That is kind of funny. Literally nobody else cared enough about Sarah to fucking attend her funeral. Oh, that makes me happy. Sif, worry not. I came as fast as I could, rewinding to the start. Well, when you do eventually get back to this point, welcome. I can only assume that YouTube kind of screwed you over again with the notifications, so I apologize for that. But glad to have you on board. Evelyn Everlasting, hi, Dad. Don't call me Dad. No, I'm not ready to be a dad. I have been called Daddy before, but that's under a completely different context. Anastasia, I'm not surprised only Abraham mourned her. She was his cash cow. Oh. you guys are the greatest audience ever, by the way. I love each and every one of you. You guys are great. I just love the fact that all of you just without question are jumping on the bandwagon of hate towards these two, as you should. But whoops. Don't forget to like the stream. Yes, don't. Everybody like the stream, and tell your parents about this. Let them know how much of a disappointment you are for listening to Messiahs and Mythology Bible book by book episode 6. Or they might actually be proud of you. Who knows? I'm not your dad. I'm not telling you how to feel. Abraham looks around and notices he's alone. Huh, I guess she was a bitch. I shall adopt you, son. Thank you, but that's kind of a really pointless thing to do. I mean, unless you're supposed to be like you're set to like inherit like a massive plot of land and a whole bunch of wealth. In which case, yeah, sure, whatever, go ahead and adopt me. But by this point, I'm 25 years old, so I'm not going to make any assumption about how old you are, but I'm assuming that we're in a very similar age bracket, so it might lead to quite a few questions at the adoption agency. But yeah, no, I mean my father would most certainly turn me over if you can actually find a way to contact him. Rip me. Anastasia, I wonder what Isaac was doing during the funeral. So later on in 24, towards the very end of the chapter, it is said that Isaac has kind of been like moping around. He's supposed to be like really sad about Sarah dying. That all being said, he couldn't be bothered to attend her funeral. But I don't know what he was doing by this point. He was probably jerking off into a sock because he was so sad. Oh, Jesus Christ, Nickel. Yeah, 43. Jesus. It. All right. So kind of a side tangent here. And I know like some people, when I tell them, oh, I'm 25 years old, they're like, oh, geez, I've had nuts older than you, son. And it's like, okay, yeah, fine, but just you need to kind of acknowledge 25 years is not an insignificant amount of time for anyone. Like even somebody who's like in like their 70s, you go back like 25 years, they're in their 50s or late 40s. They still have some semblance of their youth left over. So, and me being the crusty old zoomer that I am, being a part of like the earlier part of that generation, I can definitely see even within like my own kind of age bracket. My whole thing anymore is that I have become a very grumpy and cynical old man, and I absolutely hate people who are younger than I am by this point. I cannot stand pretty much anybody under the age of 20 by this point. I might even be a little bit more discriminatory than that. Like even like, if you're younger than like 23, which is odd because, when you're like 18 years old, or 18 or 17 or whatever, you're like, oh man, I can't wait to, be old enough to vote or buy cigarettes or alcohol or, this, that, and the third. And, as it stands right now, and I was actually just watching an interview with Vivek Ramaswamy. He's one of the presidential candidates for 2024. He's absolutely not going to win, but he does make a very interesting point. The voting age should be raised to 25. And the older that I get, the more that I actually kind of respect that sentiment. Because the thing is, I really haven't felt like a true adult up until like maybe like the past year or so. I don't think that 18 should be the date by which you should be considered an adult. You're not emotionally mature enough. You realistically aren't. And we should not, put a lot of responsibilities, especially, the decision about who should be running our frickin' country in the hands of some clueless 18-year-old kid who, they're falling for all sorts of stupid shit. When I was 18, I was a dumbass. And I have no reservations about saying that. I mean, I was a freaking dumbass when I started this channel when I was 20 years old. But, all things considered, I mean, I'm still a dumbass, but, all things considered, though, like, I honestly, I, the older I get, the more cynical I become of not just people who are younger than me, but like even people within my own generation, like or my own like sort of age bracket, like people that I graduated high school with. I don't think that they were old enough to make responsible decisions, myself included. So it's a whole big thing, and I definitely see where people are coming from when they say, you should not be qualified to vote. I honestly do think that we should go back to the way it was back in 1776. You're not able to vote unless you own land. I think that is a perfectly reasonable response in order to, actually, prove that you have the mental fortitude to manage any sort of property or personal possessions, and that you will have the ability to actually sit down and think about what you're doing when it comes to voting or this, that, and the third. Now, I still do believe that the drinking age should be completely and totally abolished, because that actually does more harm than good, but that's something entirely different. So the headline says old man yells at clouds, which I definitely just got done doing. Dude, same. I'm 28 and cannot find much in common with most around my age. Yep. That's, you know what though? Like that kind of spreads in a little bit further, because like me being at the point that I am right now, I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I think I'm more mature than a lot of other people my age. And that makes it really hard to try and find somebody to, have any sort of like relationship with. Trying to find a woman who actually does have her priorities straight, who isn't going to just, default to, I'm actually just going to go on OnlyFans and become an overnight millionaire. That plan only really works until you reach like your mid-20s, and then afterwards they go after fresh meats. But regardless, it's whatever. Young girls are horse. Nostalgia. But it's a bit strange how America makes it so that you can't drink, but you can join the military. Yes, that was actually the argument during like the 1960s. Little bit of a history lesson for you all. The draft was still in effect for any male over the age of 18, but they could not vote by that point. I believe the voting age was 21 at that point. So that they made a whole big stink about that. It's like, oh well, we can go and fight and die for our country, but we can't, make any sort of executive decisions on that. It's like, well, I don't agree with the draft either. But I will say, I guess if you do want to supersede the 25-year-old age restriction, A, you should be able to pass the civics test, and B, you should be able to prove loyalty to your country by, at the very least, enlisting in any of the armed services. But again, that's my opinion. Old man yells at clouds. I'm waiting for somebody to say "Okay, Zoomer" in the comments. Yamishi Ikeda. I apologize if I'm butchering your name. The human brain actually finishes maturing around 25, so you may be onto something. Yeah, no, I've heard that before. I think it was like when I was still in like middle school, in like biology, we heard something like human beings don't actually stop growing and maturing until like they hit like 28, like physically growing until they're like 28 or something like that, which I don't know if I buy that, because I've been stuck at 6'1" for quite a while now. So people forget the more you make something forbidden, the more it makes it more desirable. Yes, I agree with that. Um, I assume you're talking more about like the drinking age sort of thing. My whole thing is like, if you're not exposed to that at a young age, when you do get to be like 21, a lot of people, they get very reckless with the new freedom. They're like, "Ooh, yeah, now I can buy booze. I'm gonna get, completely and utterly shit faced." Whereas, if you're little Vladimir from Russia, and you've been downing hard vodka since you were 2 years old, A, you could probably hold your liquor a lot better, and B, you probably have a lot more discipline when it comes to consuming alcohol. That's more so where I'm coming from with that whole thing. So I definitely do think that it's something that, like, it's an inevitability for people, so we might as well expose young people to it, just so that they have a better understanding of the consequences of al- al- alcohol specifically. um okay, do you agree that in order to work most jobs, when you turn 18 you have to sign up for selective service? No. uh Mostly just that's like my more libertarian side. Like, I don't think that the government should have any bearing on the private sector whatsoever. Like, I honestly do. If some sort of company wants to hire like a fucking 15 or 16-year-old kid, there shouldn't really be anything on the books saying that they can't do that. There shouldn't be anything on the books saying that they can't hire a 9-year-old. But I would say that leaving things in their natural states, there's probably going to be a lot more of an outrage concerning that, to the point where it's definitely not going to be worth it to try and pursue that sort of thing. But no, I don't think that anybody should have to sign up for selective service if they want to work a job. If they want to vote, like I said, yes, yes and no. One of the alternates should be, you should be able to pass a civics test. By the time you're 18, you absolutely should be able to pass the same civics test that all immigrants have to take in order to, become legal citizens in this country. You should have that sort of foreknowledge. And that should be, kind of the gatekeeping for voting. But in terms of like things like getting a job and stuff like that, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. Just keep the government out of it. Getting a political and cultural commentary along with a Bible lesson. Wish this was my Sunday school. Lol. Uh, I try not to get too political on this channel, but I think I'm very bad at not letting the mask slip in terms of my beliefs and things of that nature. So it's kind of one of those things where you kind of have to measure it in terms of like, is it even if you disagree with me, is it really something that is that much of a hindrance to keep you from enjoying the content at hand? I mean, if it is, whatever, but um, I do think that there is something commendable to be said about somebody does um, who can put aside their own political biases and listen to somebody who they may not necessarily agree with in favor of the more broader lesson. um Oh, Snickle. Everyone should work customer service. Yeah, I mean it like listen, that was the early part of my life. That was like this sort of job that I held all the way up until I was like 24. I hated every second of it, but I do recognize that it is kind of like a rite of passage for most people. It is very much so a test of your patience, if nothing else, um, before you get a real job, which is where I'm at right now, where I don't have to deal with the public sector at all, which I fucking love. Hallelujah. I'm the same, dude. It's hard to keep my opinions hidden at times. However, the discussions you had were just stemmed from what you were reading. I honestly don't even know how the fuck we got to this point. Like we finished reading Genesis 23 like an hour ago, and I've just been spewing nonsense ever since then. Fuck me. We really do need to get back to reading the Bible. Chen Kaze, I'm still working customer service at my job, unfortunately. Chin up. You'll find something better eventually. You'll find the American dream job, the modern American dream job, which is mostly not working. That you see that like that's been my exposure. Like unless you actually have like a job where like you are constantly supervised, or it's like a physical labor job where you do need to be like moving all the time. Most of the jobs that I've seen anymore, especially like office jobs, it's like, okay, you get your work done, and then the rest of the time you dick around on Netflix. That's kind of, admittedly, that's kind of the job that I have. That's the job my mother has. That's the job that my grandmother had when she was still working in banking. That just seems to be kind of like the common sort of point that most people reach when it comes to labor, as to whether or not that is valuable or whether or not we need to reassess our requirements for the labor force. That's an entirely separate conversation. I also like the fact that during this entire stream of me rambling, we've gotten a lot more comments having to do with that than with the Bible itself, which, you know, kind of makes me think, you know, okay, maybe we might actually eventually just be able to do like a like a sort of like podcast live stream, just kind of like a sit down where, like, you know, me and I don't know, like Cockatrice or Eminem, if she wants to be on, you know, we just sit down and we just shoot the shit, and we'll see, you know, whether or not this is engaging content for people. But I personally think it's kind of boring. I don't think anybody should realistically take time out of their day just to listen to some dumbass like me go over, you know, like his own like opinions on anything. But I mean, if it is something that you guys are interested in, you know, let me know. I'll see what I can organize in regards to that. So, but this is a mythology channel. We are supposed to be reading the Bible. So let's move along to Genesis 24, quite possibly the most irritating chapter that we have gone over thus far. I've titled it "So Boring, You're Expected to Read It Twice," because you are expected to read this twice. You'll see what I mean here in just a little bit, but it's a godforsaken chapter. I hate it. I hate it so much. Woo! Hold on. I need to get down to 24. And Abraham was old. No shit. He's been old for like the past 20 chapters. Where the hell have you been? Well stricken in age. And Jehovah had blessed Abraham in all things. And Abraham said unto his servant, the elder of his house that ruled over all he had, put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh. Oh boy. This passage. So this guy is never named, though we are told that he is placed in charge of everything that Abraham owned. So we can assume that this is Eliezer of a Damascus from way back in Genesis 15. Regardless, in the old world, under the thigh was a euphemism for grabbing somebody's balls. This was supposed to be significant of Eliezer swearing upon the seed of Abraham, but my childish sense of humor cannot keep a straight face at the idea of a dying old man making his servant cup his junk and make him swear an oath upon the family jewels. What is even more funny to my sophomoric mind is that the English word testify is directly linked to this practice, and likewise the word testicles. We immediately pivot from me going on a long tangent about why people should not be able to vote until after they reach 25 to me laughing my ass off about somebody grabbing somebody's junk. Why are you subscribed to this channel? 24:3. And I will make thee swear by Jehovah, the God of heaven and the God of the earth, that thou wilt not take a wife for my son of the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I dwell. But thou shalt go unto my country and to my kindred and take a wife for my son Isaac. And the servant said unto him, peradventure the woman I will not be willing to follow me unto this land. Must I needs bring thy son again unto the land from whence thou camest? And Abraham said unto him, beware thou that thou, God damn it, beware thou that thou bring not my son thither again. God damn it. Jehovah, the God of heaven, who took me from my father's house and from my land of my nativity, and who spake unto me, and whom sware unto me, saying, unto thy seed will I give this land. He will send his angel before thee, and thou shalt make a wife for my son from thence. And if the woman be not willing to follow thee, then thou shalt be clear from this my oath. Only thou shalt not bring my son thither again. And the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham his master, tickle, tickle, and sware to him concerning this matter. And the servant took 10 camels, I have that highlighted for a reason, of the camels of his master, and departed, having all goodly things of his master's in his hand. And he arose and went to Mesopotamia unto the city of Nahor. All right, Jensokking back to the camels. I want to quickly touch up on the mention of camels, since this is the first time that they're actually brought up here in the Bible. Now, we actually, believe it or not, do have a real world timeline to kind of compare to this point in Genesis. Camels were originally domesticated in the Middle East sometime around 1000 BC. An inconvenient fact for anyone trying to claim that Abraham and his settlement existed some 4,000 years ago, but is equally as problematic for Zoroastrianism, particularly those who attest that the religion is somehow 8,000 years old, as the prophet Zoroaster's name is thought to roughly mean he who handles camels. That's basically all I have to say about that, but I do have a few fun facts about camels. There are two primary species of camel in the world today. Quote-unquote old world camels, or dromedary camels, or dromedary camels, excuse me, that's the name, that's the correct name for old world camels, who only have one hump, and New World or Bactrian camels, who are native to Mongolia and northern China, who actually have two humps, which for the longest time, I thought was just like some fever dream that I had when I was like a kid, because all the time you ever see camels in media, they only have one hump, but like little 5-year-old me was like, no, I swear to God, I saw a toy camel that had two humps one time. Camels and llamas also have a common ancestor called the Camelidae, which used to be found all over North America before spreading out to the west and south, respectively. And that has been Facts with Camels. Tune in next week to my new channel, Messiahs and Camels, for me to go over the spitting distance of camels. I'm not going to do that. Don't worry. 24:11. And he made the camels to kneel down with the city by the well of water at the time of evening, the time that women go out to draw water. And he said, O Jehovah, the God of my master Abraham, send me, I pray thee, good speed this day, and show kindness unto my master Abraham. He's essentially praying to God, saying, let's get this shit over with. Behold, I am standing by the fountain of water, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. As previously stated. Good job, Eliezer. Bleh. And it came to pass that the damsel to whom I shall say, let down thy pitcher, I pray thee, that I may drink. And she shall say, drink, and I will give thy camels drink also. Let the same be she thou that hast appointed for thy servant Isaac, and thereby shall I know that thou hast showed kindness unto my master. And it came to pass, before he had done speaking, that behold, Rebekah came out, who was born to Bethuel the son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, with her pitcher upon her shoulder. So yes, Isaac ends up marrying his first cousin once removed. One of the various consequences of demanding he take a wife from his homeland, though I suppose it's not as bad as Abraham marrying his half-sister and then pimping her out at literally every chance that he gets. So there's nothing really for me to read here up until we get to 24:37, or nothing really for no notes here for me up until we get to 24:37. This is a very long chapter. I will warn you, but I will also say we're going to skip a good portion of this. You'll see why in just a minute. And the damsel was very fair to look upon, a virgin. Neither had any man known her. Yes, that's what a virgin means, you dumbass. And she went down to the fountain and filled her pitcher and came up. And the servant ran to meet her and said, Give me to drink, I pray thee, a little water from thy pitcher. And she said, Drink, my lord. And she hastened and let down her pitcher upon her hand and gave him drink. And when she had done giving him drink, she said, I will draw for thy camels also, until they have done drinking. It's almost like the exact same sort of circumstances that Eliezer had prophesied happening when he prayed to God are now happening again in the exact same wording. I sure hope that doesn't happen again in this chapter. 24:20. And she hastened, emptied her pitcher into the trough, and ran again unto the well to draw, and drew for all his camels. And a man looked steadfastly on her, holding his peace to know whether Jehovah had made his journey prosperous or not. And it came to pass, as the camels had done drinking, that the man took a golden ring and half a shekel weight, and 2 bracelets for her hands, and 10 shekels of weight of gold. And said, Whose daughter art thou? Tell me, I pray thee, is there room in thy father's house for us to lodge in? And she said unto him, I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, whom she bare unto Nahor. She said moreover unto him, We have both straw and provender enough, and room to lodge in. And the man bowed his head and worshipped Jehovah. And he said, Blessed be Jehovah, the God of my master Abraham, who hath not forsaken his loving kindness and his truth toward my master. As for me, Jehovah hath led me in the way of the house of my master's brethren. And the damsel ran and told her mother's house according to these words. And Rebekah had a brother, and his name was Laban. Remember him, he's important for later. And Laban ran out unto the man unto the fountain. And it came to pass, when he saw the ring, the bracelets upon his sister's hands, and when he heard the words of Rebekah his sister, saying, Thus spake the man unto me, that he came unto the man, and behold, he was standing by the camels at the fountain. You just said that. Good God, repetition. And he said, Come in, thou blessed of Jehovah, wherefore standest thou without? For I have prepared the house and room for the camels. And a man came in the house, and he ungirded the camels, and he gave straw and provender for the camels, and water to wash his feet, and the feet of the men that were with him. The previously unmentioned men who were not given water by Rebekah and are presumably severely dehydrated by this point, but whatever. And there was set food before him to eat. But he said, I will not eat until I have told mine errand. And he said, Speak on. And he said, I am Abraham's servant, and Jehovah hath blessed my master greatly, and he is become great. And he have given him flocks and herds. No, he stole those. And silver and gold, and men servants and maidservants. No, he stole those. And camels and asses. Do I need to repeat myself? And Sarah, my master's wife, bare a son to my master when she was old, and unto him hath he given all that he hath. And my master made me swear, saying, Thou shalt not take a wife from the sons for my son of the daughters of the Canaanites in whose land I dwell. Okay. Right here is where we're going to skip like half the chapter. Since Eliezer obnoxiously just repeats literally everything from the very first verse of this chapter to the point that we're at right now. He literally ends the entire his entire story by saying, and then you invited me into your house, and then we sat down, and then we started having this very conversation. So I'm just and it's worded the exact same way too. This is the same problem that I ran into when I was doing research on like the hymns of Inanna for that video. So I'm not even going to bother with this crap. We're going to skip way ahead in this chapter. It's far too long anyway. We're going to skip actually all the way to 24:49 just for my own sanity's sake. The only thing that I would really put a note on here is, well, I mean, we're going to address it here in just a little bit. So let me just read this passage. And now, if ye will deal kindly and truly with my master, tell me, and if not, tell me, that I may turn to the right hand or to the left. So in a roundabout way, Eliezer is essentially asking, so did you believe all that crap? Do you have faith in God? Which is a little bit crass, but at the same time, he probably doesn't care very much. As if they say no, he'll be allowed to go back home and not bother being a matchmaker anymore. So, yeah, I would probably want to expedite this whole process too. Excuse me. Hold on one second. Let me get a drink here so I don't die. Unlike Eliezer's men, who, by the way, were not mentioned going inside the house, so I can only presume that they made it about halfway home and then they just collapsed due to heat stroke. Then Laban and Bethuel answered and said, the thing proceedeth from Jehovah. We cannot speak unto thee bad or good. Behold, Rebekah is before thee. Take her and go, and let her be thy master's son's wife, as Jehovah hath spoken. So, it's not for you to say, but here you go. Just take her and leave. Okay. First things first here. Rebekah was not divinely selected by God. She was just literally the first person found by the fountain with a bucket. Second, Eliezer was not sent by God. He was sent by Abraham. So even if you want to say that Jehovah was pulling some strings in heaven to get her out of the gate first, and he did not, regardless, he did not initiate the quest. Third, am I taking this as yet another piece of evidence to suggest that the God of Israel is still El, seeing as these guys, who are a great deal eastward of where our narrative has been taking place up until now, and had not specifically gone with Abraham and Lot when they first left without any knowledge of who Yahweh was, much less revere him unless he was, say it with me now, kiddies, El? Why, I don't know where you would be getting that notion. That's going to be a fun video. 2452. Yes, I was not kidding when I said that this is an obnoxiously long chapter. It's actually 67 verses long, mainly because they just don't stop repeating themselves ever. And it came to pass when Abraham's servant heard their words and bowed himself down to the earth unto Jehovah. And the servant brought forth jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment and gave them to Rebekah. He gave also to her brother and to her mother precious things. And they did eat and drink, and he and the men that were with him, and tarried all night. And they rose up in the morning and said, send me away unto my master. And her brother and her mother said, let the damsel abide with us for a few days, at least 10. After that she shall go. Why? No, literally, why would you request that? The entire caravan is going to get like a 10-day head start ahead of her. And then afterwards, you're going to send her out by herself to just kind of wander the desert, trying to find Abraham's tent city, which she should have absolutely no notion of where it is, by the way, for no reason. No reason at all. It's just, yeah, no, we just want her to stick around for another 10 days. No, that's stupid. That's absolutely stupid. That's so dumb. And he said unto them, hinder me not, seeing Jehovah hath prospered my way. Send me away that I may go to my master. And they said, we will call the damsel and inquire at her mouth. And they called Rebekah and said unto her, Wilt thou go with this man? And she said, I will go. And they went away with Rebekah, their sister, and her nurse, and Abraham's servant, and his men. And they blessed Rebekah and said unto her, Our sister, be thou the mother of thousands of tens of thousands, and let thy seed possess the gate of those that hate them. Bleh. And Rebekah arose and her damsels, and they rode upon the camels and followed the man, and the servant took Rebekah and went his way. And Isaac came from the way of Beer Laharoi, for he dwelt in the land of the south. And Isaac went out to meditate in the field at the eventide, the evening time, and he lifted up his eyes and saw, and behold, that there were camels coming. Camels again. And Rebekah lifted up her eyes, and when she saw Isaac, she alighted from the camel. And she said unto the servant, What man is this that walketh the field to meet us? And the servant said, It is my master. And she took her veil and covered herself. And the servant told Isaac all the things that he had done. Thank God that this is all that we get. Otherwise, can you imagine if they wrote in that Eliezer goes up to Isaac, he's wondering what the hell's even going on because he hasn't been briefed on any of this, and he starts over again from the very beginning of this chapter, recounting everything. I would actually shoot myself. And Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent and took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her, and Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. Basically, the chapter ends. He takes her into his dead mother's room and fucks her. The Bible book by book, ladies and gentlemen. That was a pain to get through. Don't worry, Genesis 25 is going to give me a brief, fleeting moment of happiness. And then we're going to actually move on to our next POV character, which, thank God. This chapter was a slog to get through, but it was important for setting up the narrative moving forward. I would just say, whoever the hell wrote this chapter, I hope that you are burning in hell right now, because that was way too wordy for something that is very simply, Eliezer cupped Abraham's balls, said that he would find a wife for Isaac. He goes out, he finds a wife for Isaac. Isaac says, yeah, okay, I'll take her. Bada boom, bada bing, the end. That's all you had to say. All right. Shenkaze, speaking of mythology, any chance you'll ever do a video covering each demon in the Ars Goetia? What do you take me for? Yes, actually, I will eventually be doing that video. However, I want to save that for like another milestone. Another edgy boy milestone, but since we've already gone past 666 subscribers, now I will wait until we get to 6,666 subscribers. That way there's an extra 6, so it's extra edgy for a video which is going to be really long. Well, really long in terms of covering like certain demons like Asmodeus and stuff like that, but like, you know, some of the more minor demons, you know, it's basically going to be like a physical description, maybe how many legions they control, maybe some supernatural ability associated with them, and then, you know, just moving on from there. But yes, you folks at home, you gotta get this channel up. That's all I'm gonna say. You know, you gotta really crank that dial to 11. 6,666. We'll do that one. No dick action. Nope. It's very it's very abridged. It's like the 1950s sex scenes in movies where it's basically like they just pan away to a window. That's the sex scene in this variation of the Bible. Actually, you know what? I don't think that there is anything really gratuitously sexual in the Bible, at least not that I'm aware of. So yeah, unfortunately, if you're looking forward to that sort of thing in this series, I'd hate to tell you, but that's probably not happening. Azo 2000, you deserve more subs. Well, thank you. I appreciate that sentiment. Alrighty. So we're going to move on to Genesis 25. And believe it or not, that is the halfway point for the very first book of the Bible, which doesn't sound very impressive until you realize that Genesis is like the fourth longest book in the entire Bible. It's only really beaten out by Proverbs, which is like 150 chapters, but Proverbs is like slam poetry, so you can really just kind of go through those relatively quickly. Yeah, no, the only one that's like obnoxious from this point forward is Jeremiah. Or no, not Jeremiah. Is it Jeremiah? It's one of those New Age prophets books of the Bible who just goes on forever. He's one of the few ones that beat out Genesis. So in a way, this is kind of a milestone. Let's see if this series can continue to exist from that point forward. Because YouTube is certainly doing everything in its power to throttle the hell out of this channel and make it not be a reality. But I digress. Moving on to Genesis 25. A stew! My kingdom for a stew! You'll understand that reference soon enough. Oh, wait, shit. Let me share the screen, dumbass. There we go. And Abraham took another wife. Her name was Keturah. And she bare him Zimram, and Jokshan, and Medan, and Midian, and Ishbak, and Shua. And then P goes into even more genealogy, none of which is relevant at all. And Jokshan begat Sheba and Dedan, and the sons of Dedan were Ashurim, and Letshim, and Lumim, and the sons of Midian, Epath, and Epher, and Hanak, and Abida, and Elda, and all these were the children of Keturah. And Abraham gave all that he had unto Isaac. So despite the fact that, we just got done saying like he had all these kids with his third wife, which, by the way, good on Abraham. He was wise enough to actually wait until Sarah was dead before taking another wife. He learned his lesson from last time. But despite the fact that he had all these new kids, Isaac's still the golden boy. Good job. Yay. And unto the sons of the concubines that Abraham had, Abraham gave gifts. And he sent them away from Isaac his son, while he yet lived eastward unto the east country. And in these days, and these are the days of the years of Abraham's life which he lived, 160 years. And Abraham gave up the ghost, and died in a good old age, as an old man and full of years, and was gathered to his people. Thank God. Oh, thank God this son of a bitch is dead. We're definitely never going to get past hearing about him for the rest of Genesis, but at the very least, we don't have to deal with his shenanigans anymore. We have to still deal with the shenanigans of Rebecca, who is, like I said, is a even bigger bitch than Sarah. But at the very least, at least both him and the other problem child are finally gone. Oh, wait a second. Let me get to my notes here. Sorry about that. All right. Genesis 25:9. And Isaac and Ishmael, his sons, buried him in the cave of Machpelah in the field of Ephron, the son of Zoar the Hittite, which is before Mamre. And the field which Abraham purchased of the children of Heth, there was Abraham buried, and Sarah his wife. And it came to pass after the death of Abraham that God blessed Isaac his son, and Isaac dwelt by Beer Lahairoi. Genesis 25:12. Now these are the generations of Ishmael, Abraham's son, whom Hagar the Egyptian, Sarah's handmaid, bare unto Abraham. We don't actually care about the generations of Ishmael, but I do quickly want to shift gears and mention the Quran, as we're all probably going to be long dead before we ever get to that book, but I do intend to cover it in, 2154 eventually. So, no surprise here. Ishmael is basically the main character of this part of the narrative in the Quran, where his father is much more attentive, going with them after they are banished, and even going so far as to help build Mecca for his son. And while the child who was to be sacrificed is never mentioned by name in the Quran, it is heavily implied to be Ishmael rather than Isaac. However, his most important role in the Quran is as a prophet, and it's said that this gift of foresight is actually passed down to his most important descendant, that being Muhammad. However, this is about as much as you're going to get on Ishmael. The Ishmaelites, as they are often referred to, do come up a couple of times in both the Old and New Testament, though the focus is never really explicitly on them. Today, tensions between the Arabs and the Jews are at a boiling point, obviously, with the whole Gaza Strip occasionally still cropping up as a political issue to this very day. One really does have to wonder that if the Christian Bible were to ever receive an update concerning things like the Crusades, the Holocaust, etc., how would the Arabs be viewed nowadays? It seems like when this book was written, the authors intended for them to be, for lack of a better term, separate but equal peoples, never really knowing that the whole "we will have many enemies turned against his hand" would apply to both sides of the aisle. It's just kind of something that me and my fucked up sense of logic kind of ponders on from time to time, because I am really a proponent for somebody sitting down and, preferably while this stuff was still going on, actually going through and mentioning, certain narratives like like the saints and the martyrdom of the Christians and stuff like that. Actually write that shit down. That'd be something interesting to explore and, preserve for future generations, because there's a little bit of a cynical fact of life. Our history textbooks are not going to be anywhere near as well preserved as the Bible, and you're going to see a lot of people seeing to that well after even we're gone. So I would prefer, if nothing else, that we do have some sort of like a historical narrative which persists beyond just, the pages of history, which oftentimes, due to any sort of like political or social change, could very well see them destroyed in some sort of mass book burning. Don't say it doesn't happen. It absolutely does. But in any case, so these are the generations of Ishmael. Do any of you care? I know I certainly don't. The only thing really of note here is 12 princes according to their nations. So essentially, just like the tribes of Israel, the Ishmaelites supposedly also divided themselves into 12 tribes. Do with that information what you will. And these are the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years. And he gave up the ghost and died and gathered unto his people, and was gathered unto his people, excuse me. And they dwelt from Havilah unto Shur, that is before Egypt, as thou goest towards Assyria. He abode over against all his brethren. And these are the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Good God. Abraham beget Isaac. That's what Abraham's son means. And Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel the Syrian of Paddan Aram, the sister of Laban the Syrian, to be his wife. And Isaac entreated Jehovah for his wife because she was barren. And Jehovah was entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. And the children struggled together within her. And she said, if it to be so, wherefore do I live? Which is just a really confusing way of asking, why is this happening to me? Which apparently begs the question as to whether or not anybody in the Bible as of this point has ever conceived, or in any case had twins up to this point. It's nothing that's ever really been mentioned, so maybe. What kind of cruel joke is this, God? You put two babies inside me at the same time. All right, 25-23. And Jehovah said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 peoples shall be separated from thy bowels. That's not where babies come from. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. And the first came forth red, all over like a hairy garment. And they called his name Esau. Or that's how I've always heard it pronounced. Some people might say Esau. I've always heard Esau. Let's talk a little bit more about these names here. Now, it's not totally clear as to whether or not the redness on Esau was meant to refer to the fact that he came fresh out of the womb all red, which like most babies do, or whether or not this is actually referring to his hair color. Contrary to stereotypes nowadays, this was actually a pretty big deal for the boy, as the ancient Hebrews considered boys with naturally red hair to be especially masculine, doubly more so if he emerged covered all over in hair, as this passage suggests. Being the first baby ever born with chest hair, it's fitting that his name is Esau, as it is as its root word se'ar means hair, and so his name Esau means a hairy fellow or person. And moving on to 25-26, we get details on the next kid. And after that came forth his brother, and his hand was hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob, and Isaac was 80 years old when she bare them. So, Jacob's name is rather interesting here. It's a bit of a play on words with multiple different meanings. So the Hebrew word for a heel is akweb. And so, following that, the literal meaning of his name, Ya'akweb, means he who grabs at the heel. However, there is another meaning ascribed to this, meaning usurper, which is ironic for a good many reasons, as we'll see soon enough as we continue along with this narrative. And the boys grew, and Esau was a skillful hunter and a man of the field, and Jacob was a quiet man, dwelling in the tents. He was a beta cuck and got no bitches. Now Isaac loved Esau because he did eat of his venison, and Rebekah loved Jacob for some reason. And Jacob boiled pottage, and Esau came in from the field, and he was faint. And Esau said to Jacob, "Feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am faint." Therefore was his name called Edom. This is really stupid. He asked for food one time, and you get a nickname based on that, but whatever. Edom here is some variation of the word red, and will eventually be the name of the people who Esau will father, the Edomites. Spoiler alerts, the Jews don't like them very much. They will go on to be spiteful, vengeful antagonists of Israel and her people, but for very good reason. 25:31. And Jacob said, "Sell me first thy birthright." And Esau said, "Behold, I am about to die, and what profit shall the birthright do to me?" And Jacob said, "Swear to me first." And he sware unto him, and sold his birthright unto Jacob. And Jacob gave Esau bread and pottage of lentils, and he did eat and drink, and rose up and went on his way. So Esau despised his birthright. And that's actually the end of the chapter. But I do obviously have a note for this one here. There is a little bit of contention among scholars as to how seriously this arrangement was supposed to be taken. Some like to point to Esau essentially saying, "I'm dying here," as a bit of a soft, sarcastic quip, showing that he wasn't very serious about making the deal, and just assumed that Jacob to likewise be joking when he said, "Give me your birthright." To keep that narrative, you need to read the word despised a little bit differently in this context, as he was not literally spiteful of his inheritance, but rather the passage is trying to convey that he doesn't take it very seriously. So in that way, he despised it, which I guess is kind of like a synonym for I'm trying to think of the word. He was very careless about it, I guess. We'll come to find out later that Jacob takes this seemingly innocuous deal very seriously, though his own scheming will not be the downfall of Esau. Esau, I said it. What the fuck? Instead, his own mother will bring about Instead, his own mother is actually going to bring upon the disintegration of his birthright, which is why I hate Rebekah so much. But all of that will have to be saved for the next episode of Bible Book by Book. And that is going to be the end of our presentation today. If anybody has any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments before we end off today. I'm going to take a little bit of time. I'm going to lubricate my throat pipe a little bit before we go and read into any of the comments. Just go ahead and leave questions referring back to Genesis 25 or anything else regarding any of the passages that we have read here today. One moment. Oh, I guess I can also get rid of this banner. Wow. We went over 2 hours with today's stream. I was actually expecting it to be a little bit longer, just considering, the girth of the passages that we did cover, and the fact that we actually did cover, 5 whole chapters today, which is pretty good. all things considered. And hey, we're now halfway done with Genesis. And hence, I guess, season 1, technically, of Bible book by book, maybe. I can also get rid of these. Bro, why is YouTube trying to unalive your channel? So this has been an ongoing issue that I've really kind of started to hammer in more recently. And, you know, it's mainly about people complaining in my comment section on like my posts or whatnot, saying like, you know, oh, I didn't see a notification for your video, or I didn't know that you were going live, or this, that, or the third. You know, it's a lot of things like that. And I personally think that this is not something that has to do with like the YouTube policy change. The YouTube policy change is stupid. So the way that they used to do things is like, if you subscribe to a channel, you would just, you know, get alerts for when they updated. Then they added the bell icon. So you had to subscribe and also click the bell. Well, now you have to subscribe, click the bell, and then also set notifications to all in order to guarantee that you see, you know, when somebody is going live or whenever they post a new video. They go even further than that now, and you have to subscribe, hit the bell, turn notifications to all, and then guess what? If you're using anything other than a Android or iPhone, you're shit out of luck. Because then they only send out notifications through the iOS system. So you actually have to go into your settings in your phone and turn on the notifications for YouTube. And believe me, they will send you notifications all the time about literally anything. And it does become very annoying, but you have to do that in order to see, you know, whether or not I upload. It used to be that they would also send you an email whenever a channel that you subscribe to uploads or anything like that. They don't do that anymore. Twitch still sends me an email whenever somebody goes live. That's how I catch, you know, certain people on Twitch, but never anything for YouTube. They don't do that anymore. Now, I thought that was the problem, but apparently they made this policy change 2 years ago. Last year, 2022, was actually a really good year for in terms of like audience retention. You know, I had really good growth that year. I think I basically doubled the amount of subscribers that I had, going from like around 2,000 to 4,000. And, you know, I would always get really good views on my videos, even like the more piddly ones that just kind of got thrown out there. I honestly think that there was like only one video that I uploaded last year that did not crack 1,000 views. Now I'm struggling to get like 500 views per video. And the common complaint that I always see anymore is people saying that YouTube does not send out notifications for when my videos go up. And, you know, I emailed them about this. You can see it in, I think it was episode 4 of Bible Book by Book. I kind of, you know, I showed the email and how they got back to me. And it was a very, very sort of like condescending email, which was essentially saying, you know, oh, there's nothing wrong with our system. It must be the fault of you or your subscribers. You know, it's like, well, do you have the setting put up to notify your subscribers? Because I have to do that whenever I upload a video. I said, yes. It's like, well, do your subscribers have all notifications turned on? I'm like, how the fuck am I supposed to know that? I'm not their mom. I'm not leering over their shoulder and like, did you get the notification? I I don't know this shit. All I can do is I can send you all the many different comments that I have received from people complaining that they have not received a notification and they still don't take it seriously. So I seriously do think, and this has been a problem ever since January of this year, like ever since it switched over to 2023, it's been like that. Now it's been a problem. So I earnestly do believe that they have been throttling my channel. I earnestly do believe that. Are we still talking Bible? No, we're done with the Bible right now. But I am taking questions. Petch. Baby is Harry. Baby is Harry. Name him Harry. Baby is holding his brother's heel. Name him Heel Grabber. So Esau was his dad's manly son, and Jacob was a mama's boy based on the description. Yes. I think there's something even in like Genesis, either 26 or 27. I think they almost, like in a very ancient way, roundabout way, literally do call Jacob a fucking beta male, which I think is hilarious. Yeah. Sad to hear, man. I will support you as much as possible. By the way, I wish I could buy the new drip, but I'm broke. Hey, don't worry about it, man. If you can't support me monetarily, there's plenty of ways to support the channel which are free. Definitely, go nuts with that shit. I absolutely do appreciate it. Supreme Bacon, how much of the Bible is based on real events? That is a very contentious question. So obviously, you got stuff like the Genesis creation story, which is like there's no fucking way that actually happened. Things of that nature. And then you got other things like Exodus, where yes, there is actually evidence that the Jews did have a mass exodus out of Egypt. Now, was the Red Sea ever split apart and the Pharaoh's army halted by a giant pillar of fire coming down from the sky? Probably not. So a lot of it is more so like taking historical events, which we can prove did happen, and kind of mythicizing them a little bit, making them a little bit more fantastical. So in that vein, I guess you could say like probably like 95% of the Bible is based on some sort of historical truth. But, you gotta have to put an asterisk next to it there and, say, yeah, but the whole thing having to deal with like God putting all of these events into motion should be called into question. Weird and Gilly, hell's to the yes, I made it for the stream. Who wants to tell him that we're almost done? I'm so sorry, my man. At the very least, this is going to be uploaded onto YouTube afterwards. So if you're really curious about all of this, you can always just rewind it back and watch it. But I am very sorry that we're almost done. To be fair, people were a bit derpy back then. What do you mean back then? People are derpy now. Rip Weird and Gilly. Yes, rip Weird and Gilly. I am so sorry, my man. God, that is that is I love the optimism and everything about that, but Jesus Christ. that might be the most tragic thing I've read all day. And we literally just went through 5 chapters of the Bible. Snickle, all people suck. Yeah. Basically. With very few exceptions. Like, and I think it does, kind of put itself into a little bit of a tier list, like how much do certain people suck? Well, some people are definitely worse than others, so just kind of associate with the lesser of the two evils, I guess, with anything, which is kind of just something that you kind of have to do. But not you, not you guys. You all are lovely. You're a wonderful audience. You're very intelligent. You have to be in order to watch this stream. No, I'm just kidding. This is fucking retarded. But yeah. Thank you all so very much for watching. I really do appreciate all the support. Do you know about the NPC horde on the Chinese spyware TikTok? I know that NPCs defend TikTok to the ends of the earth, but I don't know if there's like any sort of like new development on this. So not really relevant to this stream. I love this circle jerk. You're all supposed to be jerking me off. No, I'm just kidding. Oh God. But really though, like it amazes me, as cynical as I have been about, the fact that we've only really gotten to 5,000 subscribers this year with an incredibly slow growth rate. That's still 5,000 fucking people who actually take an interest in my content and what I have to say. And, for me living in bumfuck nowhere in Ohio, that's literally more than the population of the town that I live in. So that does mean a lot to me, that there are so many people that are willing to engage in this sort of content. And so getting a little too sentimental here. Don't lie to me, I'm retarded. We're all retarded here. What are you talking about? It's just the fact that like literally the whole world. I think somebody said just yesterday, is like the whole world has essentially become 2009 Chris Chan, and it's just like anybody who is slightly more intelligent than that is still retarded, but is still leagues more competent than like your average Twitter, or I guess X now, user. It's a stupid name change. Yeah, Patrick, I don't know anything about what's been going on with TikTok. It's not really anything that I like to delve into on this channel. Just because, I try to keep the topic as condensed into mythology as humanly possible. I mean, if you want me to, give you my take on it, you can just message me whatever's been going on Discord. I'll read through some things when I have the time, and then I'll get back to you. I'm probably gonna just give a very generic response and say TikTok bad. Don't download it. They literally keep track of even like your keystrokes, which is a massive invasion of privacy. And I 100% support, banning the entire platform, especially with regard to like government employees using it, because they like, you don't want any of that information getting out, especially not to the CCP. By the way, have you looked into Indian Jesus? Kind of, sort of. If you look at the Jesus and Buddha character study, I did touch up on like, how there are certain sects of Hindus who, or Buddhists rather, who believe that like Jesus is like the ninth avatar of Vishnu. You know, just trying to retroactively like kind of do like that new world thing where they like try to like create the new major religion of the world by like incorporating elements from previous religions or whatnot. But that's basically the full extent of what I've done on that. I do eventually want to do a just kind of for fun stream. I want to do like a tier list ranking like all the different incarnations of Jesus. You know, like there's all sorts of like interpretations that people have had about Jesus. You know, there's the Japanese Jesus who escaped the crucifixion and you know, dwelled in Japan and took a wife and all that shit. There's gay Jesus, you know, because apparently, you know, if you don't if you don't have sex with a woman, that automatically makes you gay in some people's minds. Zombie Jesus, socialist Jesus, caveman Jesus, Aryan Jesus, black Jesus, things of that nature. So it's definitely not something that's supposed to be taken seriously, but I would just think it'd be fun to do for I don't know, whenever I do get around to doing it. Alrighty then. So if anybody does not have any more questions relating to the Bible, I am gonna go ahead and stop the stream for today. But I just want to thank you all again so much for tuning in. It really does mean the world. At least this time we actually got people to watch the stream, which is definitely an improvement. What if you combined all the Jesuses? You'd get Super Jesus. You get Jesus with like the Dragon Ball Z fusion vest on. And when he would talk, you would hear like several Jesus voices all at the same time, just kind of echoing each other. That's my theory. So anyways, guys, thank you all so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. It means the world to me. And I will catch you all next time, whenever the hell I do decide to do this stream again. Yeah, whenever the hell I do decide to do this stream again. So yeah, thank you all so very much for watching, and I will catch you all next time, and I hope you all have a God's blessed day.